Good Monday morning, Saints. Hope you're doing well on this beautiful start to the week. As a tradition, I guess we're starting here. We are in the studio at 5 a.m. here to give you the most up-to-date news from the weekend. And there's much to celebrate because if you haven't noticed already, we've got a new featured item in our backdrop. I had the opportunity to hobble 13.1 miles down in Goblin Valley. Was not super pumped about my my performance, but did my first ever.
It only took you 6 hours, bro. Why?
No, dude. My goal going into it, because over the deployment I ran a bunch, and then I signed up for this when I was feeling good. Then I injured my knee, took a break or whatever, and now I'm like, I'm still gonna do it. My goal was to do it under 2 hours, and about 5 miles in, I tweaked my knee. It was really up and down. And then for the next 8 miles, I just went absolutely internal into a time warp and refused to look at my watch and just kept moving forward. And then I didn't look at my watch until I was about to cross the finish line, and I saw that it was like 49 minutes because my watch resets every hour. And then when I went through, I talked to my wife. I'm like, I can't believe I still did it under 2 hours. And she's like, honey, it's been almost 3 hours. And so it was tough. Shout out to my boy Zach that I was running alongside that I met that watches the show. God bless you. But we've got some good stories lined up for you today in some of the headlines we're going to cover. Did you know that there was a Marine righteous enough to serve as an apostle of the Lord? We'll let you know who that was and what he did. And then in our second headline, if you were driving along I-15 near the point of the mountain yesterday, you probably saw a massive bonfire happening. We'll let you know what that was and how that started. And in our feature story, the BBC's Director General resigns after reporting false news. And we'll see what implications that has on how we should view church history. All this and more. My name is Jackson Wayne, and welcome to Latter Daily Saints. Ladies and gentlemen, we didn't get rid of Brandon, okay? He's on vacation right now in Florida with his family. But we have my brother Hayden in the studio. Hayden, good morning.
What's up, guys? Good morning. Yeah, we looked for, there was a plan B, and plan B wasn't available. Neither was plan C. So we made it all the way down to plan F, and that was me. So.
And Hayden, I'm actually glad that you're here with us because, viewer, did you know what happened 250 years ago today in a bar named Tun Tavern? Our boy Robert Mullen, under the direction of Captain Samuel Nicholas, recruited the first ever United States Marines. And you know what his recruiting tool was?
Alcohol.
Free beer for life, dude. In Marine Corps boot camp, that's like one of the first things you learn besides how to make your bed is that the recruiting tool for the Marine Corps when it first started was promising guys free beer for life if they joined this gun club. And so I want to wish a happy birthday to all of our window-licking, glue-sniffing, rough and tough Marines out there. If any of you are watching.
You didn't even say cran eating.
Because dude, that's one of the most cringe things that people say about the Marine Corps is that we eat crayons.
Everybody's going to tell him, oh, you like crayons?
Yeah, it's silly. But Hayden, did you know that we are actually in the Marine Corps accompanied by an apostle of the Lord in our alma mater? We are. Do you know who that was? It's okay if you do.
I do. It's L. Tom Perry. L. Tom Perry is the only Latter-day Saint apostle who was also a Marine.
Exactly. And there's many reasons probably for that. But Hayden, pull up that picture of good old L. Tom Perry.
Okay.
Now, for those of you in the Marine Corps, which I'm probably speaking to like one or two of you, L. Tom Perry, look at that devil dog. Okay? That's a nickname they got for us as Marines. But good, young-looking, rough and tough Marine there. He served as a logistics man. He was a pogue, what they say, people other than grunt, someone that's not in the infantry. But he served in World War II. He served in Saipan and also Iwo Jima. And there's some really cool stuff about him, but something very interesting I found in an article on actually the Church News website, if you want to pull up that link for the Church Newsroom. The headline of this news story is Boot Camp. It's better with generals at his side rather than a drill instructor, says ex-Marine L. Tom Perry. It's super interesting because I was reading this article and it looks like as he was a general authority, he was invited down by some Marines to tour the base at Camp Pendleton where the recruits get trained. And it was so funny. If you look at that second paragraph, Hayden, it says, the purpose of this trip was to impress upon religious and civic leaders the modifications being made in the Marine Corps to upgrade the caliber of men going through. Now there are no drugs or smoking allowed among recruits and no bad language allowed among drill instructors while Marines are in basic training.
Were people just doing drugs in boot camp before or drinking? That'd actually be wild if recruits were drinking before.
I love how it says, now there are no drugs or smoking allowed. But here's the funniest thing. And no bad language, Hayden. This was in 1991.
Huh.
That they outlawed bad language among all drill instructors while Marines are in basic training. Did you know that, Hayden?
Well, that maybe have been like the general stop swearing, but Marine Corps drill instructors never stopped.
Yeah. Anyone that's actually been to boot camp knows that, yeah, there's some wild things said. It was so funny, actually, my first week, we had got a survey that was like a health and wellness type survey. And one of the questions to be filled out was, have you witnessed any hate speech happening? And I said, no, ... Well, I guess it depends what you mean by hate speech. And then I got called into the duty hut by my drill instructor, and he's like, Paul, what is this? And I'm like, he's like, when have you witnessed hate speech? I was like, I saw recruit Davies get told such and such thing.
And say it online.
And he's like, no, that's only if you say like racial slurs, that's hate speech. And I'm like, oh, then I haven't seen any hate speech, sir. He's like, dang right you haven't. Get out.
He said dang right?
Yes, dang right. But anyways, it's so funny. If you scroll down more, it says, at the recruit depot, Elder Perry reviewed about 400 new Marines during graduation exercises. He also had lunch at the recruit mess hall with privates from Salt Lake area, toured the Family Service Center and Child Care Center at the depot, and spoke to a platoon of new recruits about his experiences serving as a Marine during World War II. It would have been so cool to talk to him about his experiences.
For sure.
It's crazy. But I'll just read the last thing. When he says, I think the Marine Corps made two contributions in my life, commented Elder Perry. The first is it taught me I have a greater physical capacity than I thought possible. Second, it gave me a mental toughness that has been extremely valuable in my life. But he explained, it was so much more enjoyable this time having two generals standing at my side rather than a drill instructor.
Amen to that.
Shout out to you, El Tom Perry. We have some photos. Hayden and I have been in the Marine Corps for about 6 years now, just serving in the infantry reserves, and we've had a really fun time going and doing all the LARPing in the woods that we can.
Yeah, it's essentially what
live action role play.
Yeah, that's what the Marine Corps is in the night.
Dude, I love this picture because you see that mask around my chin and like some other kids wearing masks. It was during COVID, and they gave us these like diaper type things to put on our faces, and I just wore it around my chin the entire time and no one said anything.
So dumb, dude.
But that's some incentive training right there, holding my rifle out to my side. There's me looking very happy. There's Hayden. That was the first picture we got of Hayden in boot camp.
Let me just point out a couple things that are awesome. So as you can see, when you're a recruit, you're not allowed to wear your uniform properly. So you have to fold your pants up like this.
Deserve it yet.
And then you button up the very top button.
Which, yeah, as a civilian, you would just look, dang, that guy's freaking hard charger.
But no, you look like a nerd.
There's him performing a proper leg sweep. Beautifully done. Let's see. Oh, this is one of my favorite things I've gotten to do in the Marine Corps. This is a little slow-mo video of some awesome training I got to do.
First, what's the name of this thing?
This thing that I got trained on how to fly. First, each one cost like $45,000, and I got to just shoot off 3 of them one day. And so your tax dollars are going to something good. I'm having a good time with them. And it's called the Switchblade 300 Hunter Killer Loitering Munition Drone.
They were just like, they asked like a little 3-year-old, like a 4-year-old kid, hey, can you name this thing?
Switchblade 300. Yeah. But check out this video of, this is me launching it off, and then I grab my little iPad thing, and then I fly it to wherever.
Clear. fart.
Yeah. Watch the look at the lips right here.
Look at the lips.
And then you click this switch. And then wait for it. Doosh.
Takes off.
You send it out, and then you hop on your little iPad, and you can go out to like 3 kilometers, 3,000 meters. It's insane. Anyways, beautiful. God bless you, L. Tom Perry. I don't know if there will ever be another former Marine apostle. I just don't know if that equation makes sense nowadays, especially. But God bless you, L. Tom Perry. Moving on to our next headline. Hayden, did you see this bonfire in person? I personally didn't.
I did not see it either.
Okay,
But
so
I smelled it. I could smell it.
exactly, and you could see the smoke trail for miles. I saw it up in Centerville, but if you click on that KSL.com link, it says crews contain massive fire at under construction apartments in Lehigh. So apparently there was a apartment complex that was under construction. It was supposed to be done in 2027, and then all of a sudden it was reported at 10:17 a.m. by a security guard on the site that several buildings had already gone up in flames. They're not sure as to this point what the cause of the fire was, but one thing that I thought was interesting, if you scroll down a little bit, it says these types of fire. This is the fire chief. He says these types of fires, all the open lumber, it's primed to burn. This is what we call a y'all come fire. So anyone want to fight fire, come on down and help us out. The Lehigh fire chief said, this is called the y'all come fire. So they just send a video, a call out. But if you click on that video at the very bottom with the thick billows of smoke, Hayden, this will kind of give you an image of what this looked like from the road. Dang. That's either some hardcore insurance fraud or a real bad day for a developer right there. So I guess whatever it ends up being, we'll find out. But no one was hurt in the fire. That was good. No one died. Anyways, moving on to our featured story. Hayden, this is really interesting, and I have a lot to say about the implications of what this has. But over the weekend, breaking news, the Director General of the BBC, Tim Davie, resigns, and also the Chief Executive of the news division, Deborah Turness. They have resigned from the BBC, the notorious unbiased news source. I don't know if that really exists out there.
Yeah, I think that's a contradiction. There's no such thing as an unbiased TV news source, at least.
Yeah. Except for Latter-day Saints. We're not coming at it with any.
No, we're heavily biased for the gospel of Jesus
the
Christ.
name of the show is literally Latter-day Saints. We're coming at it from a Latter-day perspective, okay? Super biased. But we're just going to watch this little video that explains why they resigned and then talk about how this applies to maybe how we should view church history and what we should base our testimony off of. Our testimony of the restored gospel. But Hayden, if you just want to click play on that video here, let's take a look.
Well, it's the biggest story in town. It turns out American President Donald Trump was onto something.
Where are you from?
BBC.
Here's another beauty.
It's a good line. Impartial, free and fair.
Impartial.
Well, that criticism of the BBC and John Sobel, who was talking to there, apparently was well-founded because the so-called impartial and accurate public service broadcaster is nothing but.
You are fake news.
Sir,
go ahead.
Can you state categorically that...
Because tonight the BBC is facing serious questions over its credibility after the Daily Telegraph exposed a panorama segment that heavily doctored a speech by the American president in 2021, hours before the infamous January the 6th Capitol riot. As you're about to hear, the corporation spliced together 2 quotes 1 hour apart to make it seem like he encouraged an insurrection.
They played the following clip.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you. And we fight. We fight like hell.
But Trump didn't, in fact, say this at all. The BBC spliced together 2 clips that took place 54 minutes apart. So So let's go through it again.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you.
Now, see there, between Capitol and, that's a cut. Here's what Trump actually said.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senator.
That's a lot different.
Completely.
It wasn't until nearly an hour later that he then said the second part of the BBC's version.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we fight. We fight like hell.
That is damning stuff. Now, this, of course, is coming from the holier-than-thou BBC that even has its own so-called fact-checking service.
Okay, pause.
BBC Verify.
So, as you can see, that totally changes the perspective on what someone would see. If I saw that first clip and I'd be like, we're going to go down to the Capitol and I'll be there with you and we're going to fight like hell, like, yeah, I'm going to be like, what are we talking about? Yes, he's encouraging them to, storm the Capitol and stuff like that. But then when you actually look at what he's saying, we're going to go down to the Capitol and we're going to cheer on the senators and all this stuff. Like, it's just crazy. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Whether or not you believe he's actually going to go and cheer on the senators, that's what he wants to do. That's up to you. And it has nothing to do with Trump or anything like that. But this is just an obvious situation, and this is happening every single day with all the media that we're consuming. People are editing media in order to create a narrative on either side of the aisle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, I don't care what you think about Trump or anything like that. That's not the point of this story. The point is that there's so much stuff happening today that people are presenting what they want you to see so that you form an opinion off of the limited information that they give you so that you will think like them and support their cause to ultimately so that they can make money. Like, that's at the end of the day, like, we've talked about this multiple times in multiple stories, that's the pretty much end goal of people, to gain money and power. So they will do whatever it takes to make it so you adopt their own opinion, so you support their cause, and they get more money and more power and more things and stuff that they can have in this world.
Because here's the thing that people don't understand. And a lot of times you just think that the news or TV just has your best interests at heart. Like, they're almost doing news not for profit. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, the way that news companies make money is by your eyes watching. And so as enticing as they can make the news seem, rather than just reporting, because Walt, do you know who Walter Cronkite is?
I've heard the name.
He was like the original news broadcaster, and he would just kind of read off the news in a very monotone way. And the problem is, it just doesn't sell the way that sensationalizing and cutting up clips does. And so at the end of the day, you have to remember, these people selling you ideas have a bias and a agenda. Our agenda at Latter-day Saints is to infuse the gospel into world events and current events, and we're just straightforward with that. But Jackson, what do you think this has to teach us? You alluded to something, that this might have something to teach us about church history. What did you mean by that?
Yeah. So the way I look at this is happening today, right? These current events are happening today, and they're being skewed in a way that we don't even know the real story, what's happening. Now, take that same scenario and rewind the clock 220 years or something like that. And then trying to look at news and different accounts and things happening 200 years ago and thinking that we're getting the full story in every one of these accounts that we see. Now, not to say that we should just discount everything that we see in terms of like messy church history from 200 years ago. I'm just saying that there's too much bias and contradiction out there for me to personally base my testimony in the restored gospel of Jesus Christ solely on history. And I'm not saying solely on history people do that, but enough to where it's going to sway whether I choose to stay in the church or not. For example, we have accounts of interactions between people and the prophet Joseph Smith, like John Quincy, who is the nephew of John Quincy Adams. And he uses words like remarkable, extraordinary, kingly, and a lot more glowing words to describe his interaction with the prophet Joseph Smith. And then you have a ton of other people that have interactions with Joseph and write things that are far different from that. And so all this to say that all the claims of the restoration of the gospel of Jesus Christ ultimately are extremely spiritual in nature, and they are to be taken seriously spiritually. Now, there is an academic process to gaining a testimony in the restoration of the gospel of Jesus Christ, but ultimately these are spiritual claims requiring a spiritual process to receive a spiritual confirmation. And I think this is a pattern that's laid out and supported in Scripture, especially in the account of the two disciples on the road to Emmaus. Hayden, if you want to open up the Scriptures there, we are going to be in Luke chapter 24. And so the context here is Jesus was just crucified and was resurrected. And then it cuts to this account of him meeting up with two disciples walking on the road to Emmaus. And it says, starting in verse 13, it says, "And behold, two of them went the same day to a village called Emmaus, which was from Jerusalem about 80 furlongs. And they talked together of all these things which had happened. And it came to pass that while they communed together and reasoned, Jesus himself, the risen Lord, drew near and went with them. But their eyes were holden, that they should not know him. And he said unto them, What manner of communications are these that ye have one to another as ye walk and are sad?" Which is kind of interesting to think about the resurrected Lord. Just being like, what are you guys talking about, huh? And knowing full well all the stuff that's happened, he says, "And one of them, whose name was Cleopas, answering him, said unto him, Art thou only a stranger in Jerusalem, and hast not known the things which are come to pass there in these days? And he said unto them, What things?"
This is kind of like an undercover boss situation, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Jesus, this will be the most fire episode of Undercover Boss here. And he says, "What things?" And they said unto him, "Concerning Jesus of Nazareth, which was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, and how the chief priests and our rulers delivered him to be condemned to death and have crucified." And so they basically go through and they talk about the crucifixion and everything that happened. We're relating everything that happened to Jesus himself. And it's so funny that then it says in verse 28, after they recount all these things to Jesus, it says, "And they drew nigh unto the village whither they went. And Jesus made as though he would have gone further, but they constrained him, saying, Abide with us, for it is toward evening, and the day is far spent. And he went in to tarry with them. And it came to pass that as he sat at meat with them, he took bread and blessed it, and brake and gave to them. And their eyes were opened, and they knew him, and he vanished out of their sight." And then this is the thing I want you to pay attention to. "And they said one to another, Did not our heart burn within us, while he talked with us by the way, and while he opened to us the scriptures?" Very interesting. These were two disciples. Now, in what capacity that they followed Jesus, we don't really know. But I assume that if they're disciples of Jesus, they had spent a good amount of time walking and talking and being with him and being around him and watching him perform miracles and do all these marvelous things. Yet, when their eyes were open, as it says, and they knew him, the first thing they said wasn't the first thing they said one to another wasn't, "Oh, didn't you see Jesus's hair? Of course that was Jesus's hair." Or, "Didn't you see his face? How did we not recognize that was Jesus's face?" They didn't focus on any of these physical attributes of Jesus to recognize him, but they said, "Did our hearts not burn within us as he opened the scriptures and read?" It just kind of shows me that the main thing that they were focusing on is, didn't didn't we recognize the same feeling that we would get when Jesus would teach? How did we not recognize that that is the same burning of the bosom feeling that we had? And it's just really interesting to me that that is the first thing they bring up to show that, wow, that is the thing that we should have been able to recognize right off the bat, that that was the risen Lord. I don't know. What do you think about that, Hayden?
Yeah, I think that what we do often, like, they're not focusing on the historical Jesus. They knew what the historical Jesus looked like. They knew what the historical Jesus sounded like. And I think a lot of times what happens is we look at the historic Joseph Smith, but we don't realize that, like the BBC, all those historical accounts are going to be extremely biased. And so that's why, like, what Brigham Young says about Joseph Smith is not fully going to be the truth, because Brigham Young is Joseph's friend, right? He revered Joseph Smith. So he's going to not include certain things that are true about Joseph Smith but are not included. But then you have on the other side John C. Bennett, who hated Joseph Smith, was excommunicated from the church by Joseph Smith, and he's going to say certain things about Joseph Smith, and he's not going to be telling the full truth. Now, the truth is somewhere in between those two, maybe leaning more towards Brigham Young than John C. Bennett, I believe. But at the end of the day, you have to go off of what do we have left as artifacts of the restoration of the gospel. It's the Book of Mormon, the Pearl of Great Price, the Doctrine and Covenants. And when you read those things and you apply them to your life, what sort of fruits do those have? What do you feel in your bosom when you study the Book of Mormon and pray about it daily?
Yes. Phenomenal. This is phenomenal. And this is going to lead us to how we're going to end the show off. Is a lot of you have sent in your own type of conversion stories and how you came to know that the gospel, the restored gospel of Jesus Christ has been, is true. I want to read an awesome email that I got from an Alexis Reynolds. I think she goes by Lexie O's. But I'm just going to read this email for you and want you to listen to this cool story. It says, "Hey, my name is Lexie. I don't watch you guys." Come on, Lexie. Yeah, you do.
Come on, subscribe.
She says, "I don't watch you guys, but my husband recommended I reach out to tell you my story. I grew up in a home with 14 other siblings." That is crazy.
And she wasn't a Latter-day Saint when
15 if you include me. Let me just do the math on this just because I think this is fascinating. Okay, 15
how many months she's
times 9 months, 135 divided by 12. That's 11.25 years of being pregnant for that wonderful, strong mother. That is insane. 11 years.
Shout. That is absolutely bonkers, bro.
That is incredible. That is incredible. Anyways, she grew up with 14, 15 if you include me, 13 of whom were adopted. Okay, I should have read a little bit longer.
Did you not read this article before, bro?
I read most of it. But anyways,
no article yet. That's
hilarious. That's hilarious. Anyways, there's still moms out there that pump out 15 kids, and it's impressive. But 13 adopting, having 13 adopted kids, that's pretty hardcore. Anyways, it says, "I grew up in many different churches, including Baptist and Pentecostal. I met my now husband when I was 17 on a video game where he taught me the gospel through it." Shout out to that man using Call of Duty Warzone as a way to preach the gospel to, yeah. Yeah, people that say you're not going to find a wife playing video games.
Right here.
Right here. I'm not advocating for the adult playing of video games because, yeah, I've wasted a lot of time doing that. But anyways, it says, "My parents were very abusive, and I went from having only about a third grade education to working on a bachelor's degree through BYU pathways. I couldn't get baptized because I still lived with my parents, and my parents found the Book of Mormon downloaded on my phone. And I had an art I had drawn with scriptures included in it. They hated it so much, I had to endure 7 months of torment where I was ridiculed and treated wrongly for my faith, including being sent to a camp for them to try to convert me back to Pentecostalism. Despite all the fighting and things I had to endure, I knew in my heart that the Book of Mormon was true and that Joseph Smith was a prophet in these latter days. I have been a convert for 5 years now with an awesome husband and 2 kids. And though this is not this is not the total of my story. I have such a long story, there's no way to cover it in one email. But let me know if you would like to hear more. We will be reaching out to you. Lexie. But I want to share that with you to show you that with these spiritual claims, it takes spiritual effort to ask God in sincere prayer, study these things out in your mind. The restoration started with a very important question, not taken to man. You know, he went and it said that he talked to all these different pastors and preachers and things of that sort, talked to his parents. But at the end of the day, he went to a sacred place to ask God a sacred question. And I believe that Joseph saw the God the Father and his son Jesus Christ, and that through him, Joseph was a tool in which God revealed further light and knowledge to us. And I'm grateful for that. And I know that because God has revealed it unto me in my heart and mind with the burning of the bosom. And I invite you to seek out the same if you haven't already.
It wasn't ChatGPT?
It wasn't ChatGPT for this one.
But every other important question in our life is answered by ChatGPT.
No. You guys already know my opinions on AI.
Delete it.
Or just use it for benign searches of research, okay? But anyways, thank you for being here. And remember, until next time, if you're not looking at the world through a gospel lens, you're only getting half the story. God bless you.